knowledge is one of the most important preps you can have in your toolkit. With it, you can absolutely prosper. Without it, at some point, you're just going to be at the mercy of someone else. That's why I push so hard for people to actually learn about what it is they're doing. It's one thing to be able to go through the motions of something, and it's another thing to understand why you are going through those motions. I heavily urge people to strive to learn the why, because then that will help you adapt and overcome later when things just don't work like they're supposed to. Because believe me, whenever whatever SHTF it is hits you, you better be able to adapt and overcome. That's why it's not, it's not good enough just to know what motions to go through. You need to know why you're going through those motions. And that the reason I word it that way is because this covers all areas of prepping. You have to know the why. Incredibly important. So anyway, earlier obviously I did a video. I talked about a universal power supply I got, and I just thought I'd throw out a little fun fact there, a Watchman News fun fact. 2 to 3 years ago or so, we did a show. We interviewed Rogue Preparedness on the show, and during that show we had a severe thunderstorm move through that actually killed power. And for a good portion of that show, we actually didn't have any electricity, but I never left the air or anything else. We kept communication with her. We did the show without electricity because of that very universal power supply and those two 20 amp hour batteries I told you I had it connected to. So I just thought that would be a little fun fact to throw at you. I am experienced with that particular power supply, and that thing is just incredible. Another note to that, just a caveat to that video, I looked it up. I looked that model up earlier, and I thought I saw a place selling that particular model. It's like a newer version, you know what I mean. However, it's that model. For like $189, $190, brand new. Brand new. And if you think about it, in the scheme of things, if you think about it, okay, you could buy that for let's just say $200. We'll make it easy. $200, brand new. 900 watt power inverter for $200. You're gonna find deals like that, and this is as pure sine wave as you're gonna get, because again, this is designed to be able to keep computers functioning in case of a power surge or a power, outage or what have you. Probably some of the cleanest power supplies you're gonna get are in those universal power supplies, those backup power supplies for computers. So dropping $200 on an extremely high quality power inverter, 900 watts, to me is a pretty good deal. So just wanting to throw that out there for you. But search around, look at Facebook Marketplace, look on Craigslist, talk to your neighbor, whatever, because again, there's a lot of people that buy these things and they're just sitting because the batteries go bad in them. They get tired of hearing them beep or whatever, so they unplug them, plug their computer directly into the damn wall. Because it's one of those items in a lot of cases when individuals buy them, it's one of those items that somebody, oh yeah, I need to have that. And so they buy it, they plug it in, they hook it up, they use it until the batteries go bad, and then they trip over it in their garage floor for the next 3 years. It is what it is. It's the treadmill of computers. So you can actually come across them pretty easily, and that's why I wanted to say that. Not only that, but another little caveat: after a major, let's say there was a major SHTF happen, right, and everything just went to hell, supply chains are gone, stores are closed, yada yada yada, chaos, whatever. You'll be able to find those because not very many people are smart enough to really understand what that is. And so you're still going to be able to locate that, things like that when you go scavenging, if you need to go scavenging, or if you do, or whatever the case may be. You're going to be able to run into those power supplies, especially at offices and stuff like that. Now, here's the thing with offices. In a lot of cases, like I say, something like that's going to be overlooked and passed on because a lot of people won't know about it. They simply won't know really what it is or the value of it. But, if you've already got solar panels, batteries are what they are, right? After a major event, believe me, there's going to be plenty of vehicles where you can get batteries from. Batteries aren't going to be that hard to come across. But you got to make sure you have a way to charge those batteries. You need to make sure you have a good solar charge controller and solar panels. And again, if it's not, I don't think that necessarily every single one of those universal power supplies are 24-volt systems. I don't know that they all are, but I know that a lot of them are. At least a lot of them are. So you have to make sure you have to look for yourself and double check that. Chances are high, though, they'll have 2 batteries in them, and those batteries are 12-volt batteries apiece, and they are hooked in series for 24 volts. So nonetheless, like I say, batteries would be easy to come by. Make sure you have a solar charge controller, and I would say make sure you have a solar charge controller that can do both 12 and 24 volts. Both. That way, you've got some diversity there. And then, of course, make sure you have, if you're going to go with a 24-volt system, when you get panels, make sure you buy them in sets of 2. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, because you're going to have to hook the panels up in series 2 in order to get your 24 volts versus your 12. And yeah, the panels are technically 18 volts apiece, that's 36 volt, but nonetheless, that's how you hook up a 24-volt system. You hook 2 panels in a series up to your solar charge controller, and then, of course, your 2 12-volt batteries are in a series for 24 volts there, and then you're good to go. Again, 900 watts. And here's my thought. I've got a little 300-watt solar charge controller, if you will. You guys know about it. And, I can sit there and keep recharging that thing up all day long off of a couple of 100 amp hour batteries and that universal power supply. So you see how I keep, daisy chaining the systems, and that's the whole point. You daisy chain the systems so you keep everything as charged as you possibly can. I'm actually working on the Chinese diesel parking heater. I'm actually going to work on an alternative way on powering it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 different types of 12-volt connectors. One of them a high amp connector, the other one not so high. And what that is for is because that thing at maximum runs at like 3 amps on high, right, when it's running. And under, the startup or shutdown process, it'll kick up to 10 amps. So what I'm going to do is have 2 12-volt connectors on there, and what I can use is I can use a single 20 amp hour battery just to get the thing started or to shut it down, but then turn around and I can hook up one of my power boxes or something like that to keep it running because it's only drawing 3 amps. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, I can boost start it more or less with the battery into the larger connector and then plug in my little solar generator after it's already running and the glow plug shut off and it's only pulling 3 amps or less. Then I can just simply plug it in, turn it on, disconnect the big battery, use my battery charger to charge back up the 20 amp hour batteries. And there's a reason for doing that. I'm keeping all of the heavy demand on a, cheesy 20 amp hour lead acid battery. I'm keeping all the heavy demand, all the heavy drain on that, but I'm not draining it down very far. Which means I'm going to be extending the life of that battery as much as possible. And then, even that little bitty box will run that thing for a little while on, on that, even on 3 amps. I mean, it'll run it for a little while. I'd have to do the math again to figure up the amp hours and all that. But nonetheless, be educated. Be smart. Make good decisions. Don't waste your money. There's enough stuff with prepping that costs money that we can't avoid, like food. I hate to see people going out and buying a bunch of Gucci prepper type of items that they probably can't even really afford because they know that's a hole they need to fill in their preps. Because let's face it, most of us are counting on having some type of alternative energy in our preps. So you can spend a fortune doing it or not so much. The ironic thing as hell is you actually get a better system by spending less. But it takes a little bit of knowledge and doing a little bit of homework, making sure you're buying the items that you need. But the reward is amazing. It truly is, man. Knowledge. And that's why I think I get most frustrated. Is because a lot of people in society today wants to look down on knowledge. They want to criticize knowledge. They want to demonize it. They want to make anybody that shows up with a better idea look like a fool. For what? I don't know. For me, it's not about ego. For me, it's about trying to help you. I've got nothing to sell you. Except theories. That's pretty much all. Anyway, enough of that. I do have a bunch of headlines up here that I was going to kind of run over with you. There's a bunch of them, so some of them I won't spend a lot of time on. There is one, though, this first one, and it probably will be the last, maybe. Once again, I want to revisit what happened with the Amazon warehouse in Edwardsville, Illinois, in the tornado, because, again, like I said this morning in the video, we get constant news about this because we're so close to it. And I don't like misinformation. I don't like finger pointing. I don't like blame going where it doesn't belong. And that doesn't matter who it is. It's not. I don't live life like a high school football game. It's not about my team winning. It's about the right answer. And it's tragic what happened, no doubt. And I feel for everybody involved. I've said that over and over. But I really do think this is a case of individuals making a choice to find instructions and it resulting in a very tragic ending. And I've been saying that because it just, the situation, the way things were being worded, were pointing to that, in my opinion. And I pick up on things. And so anyway, to further confirm what I was saying, the one survivor out of the 7 that wasn't with the other 39 people has spoke and confirmed, essentially, without directly confirming, I guess you could say circumstantially, if you will, confirmed what I've been saying. This is what the article says. It was a terrifying scene inside the Amazon warehouse on Friday night as 39-year-old Craig Yost watched helplessly as the building began to collapse around him. The walls caved in and I got pinned to the ground by a giant block of concrete, said Craig Yost. I was pinned down on my left hip with my right hip and my right shoulder holding a chunk of concrete. On top of my left knee was a door from the bathroom stall, and my head was on that with my left arm wrapped around my head. I could just move my right hand and foot. Yost had been working as a contracted delivery driver at the warehouse for 2 months. It was around 8:15 on Friday night when he returned to the facility after finishing his route. Now listen. These are quotes, but you have to understand this guy's not going to implicate himself in anything. So you're going to have to read between the lines here, and I will point it out. He said they're telling people just park your van and go to the shelter, he said. Where's the shelter? The bathrooms? Okay, so I parked the van and I go to the bathroom. They had people directing others to the bathroom, and that's where we sat and waited. Now listen to this, okay? Yost says out of the 2 bathrooms in the warehouse, he was directed to go to the bathroom located in the south part of the building. That's where he and the other workers waited out the tornado warning. Now, that's his claim. And again, he's not going to just openly admit that they were defying management. But listen to this. This is the meat of it. Part of me wanted to leave because, I'd rather be at home if something bad is happening, he said. The other part of me is from the Midwest, and I've seen a ton of tornado warnings. To me, that says it all. We already know that one of the other victims involved was texting and didn't seem happy about not having the option to just leave and go home. So now we have another person that was back in those same bathrooms, more or less giving the same indication that he wasn't happy that he wasn't allowed just to go home, and also gave indication to think, or to make people believe that, that his feelings are, we always have these warnings, it's no big deal. Now, I'm not trying to blame here or anything. All I'm trying to say is that I think Amazon did everything that they could to get people in a safe location, and I think for 39 individuals they were successful. I think 7 individuals had an issue with management and decided to be defiant and stayed in a different bathroom away from the others because they were pissed off because they couldn't go home. Just my thoughts. I've been on both sides of it, I've worked in the supervision end of things, and I've been the peon many, many times. Much more than I've worked in supervision. And I know, I get it. I had a piss poor attitude. I probably still do in some ways, but I'm sure I do in some ways still. But, it is what it is. Again, I'm just after the truth. That's all I want. That's all I want. Just got something on this. Just the only article is what I mean. Huge blaze hits power station in California. Says a 6 blocks radius in downtown Sacramento, the capital of California, has lost power as the result of a fire at an electrical substation. The blaze has caused the nearby county jail to go into lockdown. The substation at 7th and 8th Streets caught fire on Tuesday morning local time. A pillar of smoke went up in the sky as the immediate area lost power. Maine Sacramento County Jail, which is right across the road, went into lockdown for staff and inmate safety, the sheriff's department said. The nearby courthouse and county buildings were presumably also affected by the outage, as were the traffic signals in the area. So the only reason why I wanted to post this is, talking about energy and stuff like that. We never know when we could be hit with an outage. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's so important to be prepared, especially for electrical outage and stuff like that. But take the smart route when you do it. Please spend a little bit of time, and less money, and get yourself a better system than the cheap and easy click add to cart one time and it's over. And do what you want. But there's a better option, and I know that there's a lot of you that just can't afford to just go out there and keep up with the Joneses, Anyway, have a sip of coffee. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about COVID, Omicron, stuff like that. But in my opinion, it's good news, so don't click off yet. I have actually been very optimistic about Omicron. I know that others aren't, but I'm very, very optimistic about it. So this here says doctor who flagged Omicron advises against harsh restrictions. So, he says there's no need to impose tougher restrictions over the Omicron variant as the cases are predominantly mild. The head of South African Medical Association, Dr. Angelique Coetzee, has said. The South African GP was the first medic who raised concern about the new COVID-19 variant 4 weeks ago. Answering questions of the UK Parliament's Science and Technologies Committee on Tuesday, Dr. Coetzee said that we don't have all the answers and that we need to see how this virus progresses. However, the current pictures show that Omicron is a mild disease, less dangerous than the Delta variant. Thought it might be more transmissible, she added. Dr. Coetzee said the existing data, though limited, shows that the symptoms in Omicron patients, even in those who are hospitalized, are milder. They get better quicker, and there have been no cases of long COVID in these patients. No cases. Now, I do know the UK it was yesterday registered their first Omicron death. I believe I put out that headline. But that's one. So that's all we can go by. Again, I'm telling you, I think this is good news. I think this is really, really good news. Now, what's not so good news is where the government's going to go with it. That's apples and oranges. This headline is, and YouTube, I'm just reading headlines. Study reveals how effective Pfizer vaccine is against Omicron. This here says new analysis released from South Africa shows that 2 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine are considerably less effective in battling the Omicron variant compared to earlier strains. The study, published by Discovery Health in partnership with South African Medical Research Council, was released on Tuesday and indicates that 2 doses of Pfizer vaccine are only 33% effective against infection amid the current Omicron-dominated wave. The study did show, however, that the vaccine, excluding booster shots, is effective against serious COVID infections overall, saying it provides 70% protection against severe complications from the virus that would require hospitalization. This level of protection, however, is down from a much higher 93% figure found during the previous wave of the Delta variant cases. So, I had to read both sides of it, otherwise YouTube would get all mad at me. But anyway, England is actually lifting countries from the COVID, all of them, from the COVID red list. All of them. Why would they do that? Well, let's see. The British government is removing all the countries named on England's pandemic travel red list, Secretary for Transport Grant Shapps said or has announced, I'll get it right somehow. From 4 a.m. on Wednesday, December 15th, all 11 countries will be removed from England's travel list, Shapps revealed in a statement posted on Twitter on Tuesday. He added that all current COVID testing measures for travelers arriving into the country would remain in place, but would be reviewed in the first week of January. Shapps said all travel measures remained subject to review, and the government was prepared to impose new restrictions should there be a need to do so to protect public health. There are growing indications that Omicron, the new COVID-19 variant that has prompted the recent bans and restrictions, is milder than earlier detected strains. So my reason for reading this is because we're hearing this from multiple different places over and over and over. Milder, milder, milder. That's good news. That's incredible. That's actually what we, in my opinion, or I should say what I've been waiting for. I can't say what you've been waiting for. That's what I've been waiting for, because science show, that's the way this usually works. After it keeps jumping variants, it typically gets, as I've said, more transmissible but less severe. So yeah, that's, what we wanted. I just hope that the governments react accordingly. But I'm not going to hold my breath. Okay. Just real quick here. Got an article, Wholesale Costs Make Record Jump. Wholesale prices have risen a record amount over the past year by 9.6%, according to new figures released by the U.S. Labor Department on Tuesday, compounding the ongoing inflation crisis facing Americans. The Producer Price Index for Final Demand, which tracks the prices paid by domestic producers and suppliers, rose 0.8% in November and 0.6% in October. The current annual jump marks the highest on record since the Labor Department began collecting such data in 2010. Excluding food, energy, and trade services, the Producer Price Index still saw a 6.9% annual jump, leapfrogging the record set in 2014. The consumer price of goods such as gas and food has consequently risen across the nation, as has that for services such as hotel rooms and air travel. The rise in prices charged by producers is only the latest sign that the current inflation crisis is not going anywhere anytime soon for Americans who are enduring record inflation. Previous data from the Labor Department showed the Consumer Price Index also saw a record annual rise in November, moving at its fastest pace since 1982. The White House has chalked up the rising costs of the COVID-19 pandemic and the supply chain issues keeping companies from meeting increased market demand. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told a Senate committee last month that though inflation had been described as transitory in previous communications, that word would likely no longer be used, as it didn't accurately describe the U.S. current cost issues. It carries a sense of being short-lived, Powell said. We tend to use it to mean that it won't leave a permanent mark in the form of higher inflation. I think it's probably a good time to retire that word and try to explain clearly what we mean. In other words, it ain't going back down. So, and I think it's going to get, I think we got worse problems than that on the horizon. I think we got problems to where those goods just aren't going to be there. It's not going to be a matter of price. They're just not going to be there. Okay. Now, I guess we'll roll out the war wagon and talk a little bit about that. Man, I'm telling you, it's getting stupid internationally. I don't know how much folks really watch this or pay attention to it, but it is escalating very quickly. Very quickly. As you see here, UAE may scrap $23 billion F-35 deal with the U.S., says reports. Now, this is just on the heels of the U.S. picking up a contract with Finland, or at least working on picking up a deal with Finland for a much larger deal than this, actually. And I just find this amazing. And I know that they give their reasoning and all that in the article. You could read that if you want, but you also have to understand that a lot of times there's a lot of diplomatic speak that is released out to the media, when in reality there's kind of other reasons. But this here does claim, let me at least go over this. It does say the United Arab Emirates has suspended talks with the U.S. over procuring 50 F-35 jets that were a part of a $23 billion arms deal, expressing concerns over a restrictive end-user agreement, according to media reports. So, I mean, I'm sure that absolutely played a part in the loss of the deal, or potential loss of the deal. However, there's a lot of shifting going around in this team picking that's going on in between nations. So, could that have an effect on this? I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But it's certainly something to, put in the back of your head and think about as we watch everything unfold. Iran, they have really been kind of sticking their head up here as of late. Anyway, this here, Iran showcases medium-range missile that can reach Israel. Tehran has given people around the world a first glimpse of the Hozvia cruise missile, allegedly a copy of the Soviet-built Kh-55 model mounted on an Iranian fighter jet. So, again, a lot of back and forth, and as you know, or may know, Israel has more or less stated that they're ready to do this with or without U.S. help or permission or anything. So keep your eyes on that. China is calling for a reckoning over the U.S. atrocity, as they call it, in Afghanistan, and I can't say that I could disagree with what they called it. This here says the U.S. drone strike that had killed 10 civilians in Kabul, including 7 children, is an atrocity, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has said, calling for the international community to hold the United States accountable for war crimes. While the U.S. has talked about democracy and human rights at the Summit for Democracy, the innocent Afghan people who were gunned down by the U.S. military were brushed aside and their families had no place to complain about their grievances, Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin told reporters in Beijing on Tuesday. Wang added that it was even more outrageous that the U.S. had refused to punish the perpetrators. He was responding to a question about the Pentagon's decision not to discipline anyone involved in the August 29th drone strike on Kabul, which had been launched amid the U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan and the Taliban takeover. We condemn the brutal military intervention by the U.S. in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria in the name of democracy and human rights. We call on the international community to look into the U.S. military's war crimes of killing innocent civilians around the world and hold it accountable, Wang said. So the reason for me sharing this article for you is because are they so wrong? I'm not saying that I'm agreeing with China. I'm not saying that I'm with nothing like that. I'm saying that, man, I like truth. I like honesty. I like accountability. Those are things I like. Much, much more than being popular or being wealthy or... No, I want to be honest. I want to be real. And if I looked at everything that went on for 20 years in the Middle East that we were involved in, and say that it was justified, I'd be full of it. But as a matter of fact, I was raising hell about there being no weapons of mass destruction there before they went in. Again, I've said it many times, and I'm not a Johnny-come-lately. I didn't just start paying attention. I didn't just start prepping. I've been doing it all my life. But anyway, this really isn't good. Because they've got a card to pull here. They've got a card to pull here, and the bad thing about it is there's a lot of countries on the planet, a lot of countries in the U.S. What the heck, a lot of countries on the planet that aren't real favorable to us right now. And there's a lot of countries. Well, there's other countries that had lost a lot of people as well in those conflicts in the Middle East. And it's come right out. It's should be common knowledge at this point that they actually didn't have a real reason. You know, they knew that there was no weapons of mass destruction and the whole 9 yards. So, sad. Hang on. Oh, wow. Almost quarter till. That's okay. This stuff's important. Well, not me rubbing my hat on the microphone, but the vaping, important. Coffee, that's one of the most important things about this show. Okay. Russia warns of nuclear response to NATO missile plans. Says here, Russia could be forced to deploy intermediate-range nuclear missiles on its European territory in response to what it sees as okay, so I took too big of a vape. Let's see. In response to what it sees as NATO's plans to increase the presence of atomic weapons on the continent, a top diplomat or Democrat, whoever, has claimed. In an interview with RIA Novosti on Monday, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, I haven't figured out how to say his name, insisted that if Western nations refuse to sign a moratorium on inter-range nuclear forces in Europe, Russia will be obliged to place the further west than is currently the case. Moscow has proposed the deal as part of a package of measures intended to defuse the ongoing crisis in Ukraine. The absence of progress in the direction of a political diplomatic solution to this problem will make it so that our response is military, Ryabkov said. That is, it will be a confrontation the next round, the deployment of such tools from our side. So, this is not good. This is a very serious escalation going on here. And again, there's no defusing happening. There's nobody defusing it. Russia's tried. And again, I'm not taking Russia's side. I'm not saying that I trust Putin or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I am telling you from what I can see, Russia is having the hell provoked out of it and has been for a long damn time. Just what I see. Russia rolls out new Hunter stealth drone. As you recall, the U.S. just unveiled one not that long ago, so the tit for tat, this is Russia's. It says here, a new super stealthy variant of Russia's recently developed heavy combat drone, which is equipped with advanced anti-detection capabilities, has been unveiled for the first time and will undertake its maiden flight soon. The modified Sukhoi S-70, known as the Okhotnik, or Hunter, was presented to the world on Tuesday in the city of in southern Siberia. Alexei Kuravutko, I can't say that either, a deputy at the Russian Ministry of Defense, oversaw the process. Creating drones of this class is only possible for countries with developed aviation industries, which allow for the entire cycle of development, from the design to the preparation to the carrying out of all types of trials, he said. I'm going to say he because I can't pronounce his name. The rollout of this UAV means that the entire product has been assembled and equipped with all the necessary onboard equipment required by an aircraft. He added that it is now time for preparations for the drone's first flight. Prototypes without its increased stealthy technology and armaments have been tested in recent months. So, anyway, from what I can tell, that's a heck of a drone. So, again, in another show of escalation and seriousness of this situation, we have this. Putin and Xi set to talk as tensions flare with the West. The leaders of the world's largest country and its most populous will hold talks on Wednesday, with Moscow and Beijing publicly committed to strengthening their ties amid increasingly strained relations between East and West. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping are set to speak as both nations have been embroiled in a series of worsening rows with the U.S. and its allies in recent weeks. Russia is accused of plotting an all-out attack on neighboring Ukraine, which Moscow has consistently denied. Speculation has also swirled that China could order a military operation to take Taiwan, which Beijing insists is its sovereign territory despite being out of its control for the past 7 decades. Xi has previously described Putin as his best friend and one of his country's closest allies on the world stage, with the pair insisting they are united in the face of Western sanctions and political pressure. However, despite increasing military and economic cooperation, a number of analysts have pointed out that the two powers are far less integrated than the blocs like NATO. And that's likely very true, but does that really matter much in the whole scheme of things? Look, these countries have had enough. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily in the right. I'm not saying we're in the right. I think there's wrongdoing by everybody here. But nonetheless, it does seem like the U.S. government has pushed things a little far, and they keep pushing. So, I don't know. Right now, strategically, it would be smart, in my opinion, for, if Russia intended to make that move, if China intended to make that move, in my opinion, strategically, it would be smart to do that right now. And no better time if they were going to do that. So we'll see. Putin warns Macron that Ukraine is being pumped up with Western weaponry. Says Ukraine is being pumped up with modern weapons which pose a direct threat to Russia. President Vladimir Putin told his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in a phone conversation on Tuesday. The call between the two leaders, took place amid fresh tensions between Russia and NATO over the situation in eastern Ukraine and the U.S.-led bloc's plans for further expansion to the east. Moscow has been preparing draft documents for a legally binding treaty that would prevent such a situation. Putin told Macron that Kiev was purposefully exacerbating the situation in breakaway Donbass with the connivance of a number of Western countries. I'm not sure I know that word. The Kremlin said in a statement following the talk, the region is home to two self-declared republics which have been outside Ukraine's control since shortly after the 2004 invasion. So anyway, a lot of diplomatic talking going on between nations. And I don't know, man. Let's not forget that we kind of pissed France off. Okay? Australia, the United States, kind of pissed France off. So just keep that in mind. NATO dismisses Russia's call for moratorium on missile deployment. Now, this article came out right as I was starting the show, so I hadn't even had a chance to read it, to be honest. It says NATO has rejected Moscow's call for a ban on deployment of nuclear-capable intermediate-range missiles in Europe while blaming Russia for violating the U.S.-scrapped INF treaty. Responding to Moscow's proposal to impose a moratorium on deployment of such missiles in Europe on Tuesday, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg dubbed the idea not credible. The proposal from Russia on a moratorium is not credible because we had a ban and they violated that ban, Stoltenberg said, referring to the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, a landmark 1987 security agreement that the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from back in 2019. He repeated the bloc's accusations that Moscow had run afoul of the now-defunct treaty by deploying missile systems prohibited under its scope, demanding Russia dismantle them before offering to negotiate a moratorium. So, without going through and reading all the rest of it, again, this is a very consistent back and forth, and it's all, I might be making up a word here, but it's all escalatory. Am I making up a word? I might be making up a word. It'd be a good word, so Webster's, keep me in mind. Remember, I'm a wordologist. I can do that. I'm kidding. Let's see. Ooh, yikes. Okay, let me get this tweeted out, and then we'll jump over to headlines, because we're almost at 9 o'clock. Not that I'm in that much of a hurry, but I try to keep these about an hour or so. Because, let's face it, most people don't even want to listen to my ass that long. Let's see. Another sip, a couple of vapes. I'll try not to hack my lungs out. Can't promise that at any time, though. All right. It's much quieter in here now, by the way. We'd been using a humidifier now for a little while, and it really helps with my breathing and whatnot. It helps Jen, it helps, actually, Blue even benefits from it. But anyway, I had it sitting on the table right behind me, and the thing's kind of noisy. Put it in a different location, so now you don't have to hear that stupid thing running in the background. You're welcome. Hey, I'm glad I don't have to hear it running. But I enjoy the benefits. Alright, let's do some headlines. Everything from that I started putting out this morning anyway, nothing from last night. Veteran actor fired for refusing COVID-19 vaccine sues ABC. Deceased Amazon workers allegedly prohibited to leave after tornado. I actually did a report on that this morning. Russia warns about frozen ancient viruses, and that's nothing new. That's been talked about for a long, long time. So, not real sure why that's coming up again right now. Political row in Croatia over Russia-Ukraine. Russia is world leader in high-tech weapons, says Putin. Well, yeah, I guess he would probably say that, but actually, they're more ahead than we are. African nation to destroy 1 million COVID-19 vaccines. 7 killed as car packed with migrants crashes while fleeing police. U.S. explains how it would respond if Russia attacks Ukraine. And you see, there's a lot of headlines that I didn't even include in my little talk at the beginning of the show. I I do my best to try to pick out the most important bits. Health officials refute Deputy PM's incorrect Omicron data. AUKUS sub-deal comes with a hefty price tag for Australians. Of course so, because we're involved. And by the way, that price tag, you could probably double or triple it because, we're not going to stay in budget. Facebook explains its fact-checking mechanisms. Ukraine has weakest economy in Europe and government is to blame, the ex-PM says. Berlin's block of Nord Stream 2 takes toll on European gas prices. Canada pledges historic reparations to Indigenous children, and I really hope they follow through on this. So, I really hope. I mean, that is insane. That whole story. That is just indescribable. Vatican court judge slams Gates and Soros for using COVID to impose total control. Nah. NATO chief reveals his dream job. He wants to be the new Captain Kangaroo. No, that's not it. German tabloid reveals who blocked NATO arms supplies to Ukraine. AP demands answers from U.S. government over tracking of journalists. You know what? I know of about 350 million Americans that need to know why they're being tracked everywhere. UK eyes revision of human rights law to challenge wokery and PC culture. Belarus delivers harsh sentence to, and I can't say her name, to her husband. Biden hands partly tied over Ukraine, Democrats claim. In other words, make excuses for. Top Aussie official blasts hypocrisy of Assange's possible extradition to the U.S. How text to chief of staff pleaded for Trump to call off January 6th rioters. Covered that. Airport to fine carriers for unvaxxed passengers. That's in Ghana, but now the others have the idea. Let's see. Covered that one. Poll shows how many Belgians are okay with restrictions for the unvaxxed. Russia's triumph in India shocks the U.S. Don't use Nord Stream 2 to pressure Russia, says Austria. You know, and there's a lot of people that, you know, in my opinion, innocent people that are harmed by all of this nonsense. Because if they just opened up the pipeline, there would be more competition. Prices would go down. People, average, everyday people would benefit. I don't know. WHO warns of COVID tsunami before Christmas. Doctor who flagged Omicron. I covered that one. Mystery disease kills 89 people in Africa. Man arrested for trying to sell COVID-19 for self-injection. Is that like when somebody tells me to go F my... Nah, I'm just kidding. Tesla to accept new crypto as payment. Gunfire shot by celebrating football fans kills 4-year-old girl in Yemen. UK lawmakers quietly authorize terminating citizenship without notice. Fuel tanker inferno leaves at least 40 dead. Sad story. So apparently this truck was driving through, and I guess there was a motorcycle, and the truck tried evasive maneuvers not to hit the motorcycle or whatever. The truck flips over. And so then a bunch of people decided they were going to try to, a bunch of people that lived around there decided they were going to try to siphon fuel out of this overturned truck. And apparently one of them made a spark or something because it went up. And I'm sure killed most all of the people that were trying to siphon fuel, and bad situation. England lifting all countries from COVID red list. Iconic Vegas mega resort sold for cool $1 billion. That's all I need, cool $1 billion. Deadly Colombian airport bombings branded terrorist attack. $2 million fuel theft from U.S. base explained with Romanian culture. Top Russian court rules on torture complaint. Google and Apple have vice-like grip on consumers, says a regulator. Let's see. Covered that. Unit behind notorious Pegasus spyware on brink of shutdown, says reports. Major British bank fined for laundering trash bags full of cash. EU court sides with LGBT couple in huge development. Macron's former bodyguard detained, says reports. Topless women case may head to Supreme Court. EU can be rapidly dragged into gun violence, a report warns. Covered that. 2 men sent to jail for combined 31 years in Russian mafia murder case. Pfizer plans for quarterly COVID revaccination unnecessary, says a Russian expert. D.C. sues January 6 insurrectionist for capital damage. How about suing the federal government for capital crimes? Nah. NFL gunman who killed 6 people had severe brain trauma, says medic. Major taxi company suspends all Tesla Model 3s over serious accident. First EU country moves to legalize cannabis for personal use. Talked about that. Russia says EU sanctions a product of hysteria about former African colonies. Let's see. COVID passed now law in England despite Tory rebellion. UAE, I covered that one. Ivy League campus shuts down over suspected Omicron cases. Ex-Governor Cuomo ordered to pay back COVID profits. Senator urges reform to tax freeloader Musk, and he bites back. Crypto platform glitch briefly makes traders trillionaires. Does that make them trans trillionaires? NATO dismisses Russia's call for moratorium on missile deployment. U.S. retail chain cancels health benefits for unvaccinated employees. And there is another headline up there. White House points to culprit behind soaring prices. What? Jen Psaki's the culprit? What? Hang on. Let me share it out, and we'll take a peek at what bullcrap they're trying to tell us. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blamed an increase in the cost of groceries, including that of meat, on the greed of big corporations, accusing them of profiteering from the pandemic amid the record-breaking inflation. After being asked on Tuesday for her opinion on the argument that high inflation in the U.S. is being driven by corporate greed, Psaki responded that President Joe Biden and Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack have both spoken to what we've seen as the greed of meat conglomerates. That is an area, one where people go to the grocery store and they're trying to buy a pound of meat, 2 pounds of meat, 10 pounds of meat. The prices are higher, she said, claiming that you could call it corporate greed, sure. You could call it jacking up prices during a pandemic, Psaki added. The press secretary then pointed out there are other areas where we've seen increases because of supply chain issues, and we're seeing those increases around the world as it relates to gas prices, oil supply, and all things along those lines. However, she concluded that there are some areas where we have seen corporations benefit profit from the pandemic, and certainly the president would agree with that component. So, but they're picking and choosing who it is that it's okay to profit during the pandemic. Amazon, go right ahead. Walmart, go right ahead. Right? Mom and pop restaurant, oh no, you got to shut down. Ridiculous. Anyway, I am going to get the hell out of here and relax for the rest of the evening, take trash out and all that good stuff, and God willing, we'll be back tomorrow for all this nonsense all over again. I hope to see you there, and as always, God bless you, we love you, be one with your spirit, and shalom.